hi everybody, and welcome to What the F is a Large Language Model Anyway? Over 1 billion people are using AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Copilot. But most people couldn't explain what a large language model actually is. And that's dangerous because if you don't understand how large language models really work, you can't judge when to trust them, when to question them, and when to keep them the hell away from your data. In the next 15 minutes, I'm going to explain very clearly and very simply what's happening under the hood of these systems, because that's the first step to becoming a top 1% AI user and thinker. If you understand this, you'll be able to interact more successfully with large language models, judge their outputs more critically, and use AI on your own terms. In particular, you'll be able to design AI into the parts of your life where it benefits you and keep it away from the parts of your life you want to protect. So we're going to start with how large language models differ from the software that we are used to. So a traditional software tool is very rigid. The rules on how it works are hard-coded into it. So it's like a flat pack furniture. You follow the instructions and you're going to get the same bookcase every single time. The couple building that IKEA bookcase in London gets the same bookcase as the students building it in New York and the family building it in South Africa. A large language model is different. It doesn't follow hard-coded and rigid rules. It's kind of like handing somebody an enormous box of Lego and saying, build me a bookcase. And instead of an instruction booklet, this person has spent years at the Museum of Bookcases examining how bookcases are built. He's seen millions of bookcases, so he can easily build you a bookcase. But each time he does it, it comes out slightly different. And occasionally, you don't get a bookcase at all. You get a duck. In a large language model, neither the steps nor the final form is predetermined, whereas in traditional software, it is. So if large language models are not programmed with rules, how do they know what to do? The answer is they teach themselves. So instead of following a rigid system of rules written up by a team of computer programmers, a large language model teaches itself from a huge reading list. So we have a couple of phases of this, and the first is called pre-training. And this is where the model is fed hundreds of billions of words, books, news, forums, bits of code, virtually the whole internet, and it analyzes the words and recognizes patterns. It shows itself a sentence with one token blanked out, and then it asks itself to guess or predict the missing token or word. So it doesn't look up the answer, it gives each potential answer like a probability, and it picks the one with the highest score. If it guesses or predicts wrong, it tweaks its internal dials a little, and then it tries again. And this whole loop runs billions of times over. And gradually, the model builds a statistical feel for grammar, facts, style, and you can probably understand now that it's also got a good grasp of the biases that are baked into its reading material because, remember, it's pretty much trained on the whole of the internet. So this process needs warehouses and high-end chips called GPUs, graphics processing units, and I'm sure you have all heard of NVIDIA, the company that makes the most and the best graphics processing units. And it needs these warehouses and chips crunching numbers for weeks, which is why NVIDIA has been so successful in the last 5 years. And it means that a model can cost $100 million or more in electricity and hardware rental before it even answers a single question. So the end result is a system that can keep writing from almost any input or prompt because it's absorbed the patterns of human language, not because a programmer hard-coded the rules into it. So it's not intelligent and it's not actually reasoning. It doesn't retain knowledge. It's just got a really good grasp of human language and it's able to predict the next best word in a sentence that makes it sound really smart, but it's not. So once we have our raw model after pre-training, we have a very high-performing model, but it's totally unfiltered. It has no judgment at all. And so next comes a two-part cleanup phase. And the first part is, I'm sure you've all heard this term, but you might not have known what it means, and it's called reinforcement learning with human feedback. So most people aren't aware that there are thousands of humans providing feedback to train AI models. And I say thousands, but I don't actually have a clear number because that information is not available. But these people are typically hired in places with good English and relatively low wages. And these human reviewers read sample answers and they score them repeatedly. I'm simplifying here, but they're like, that was helpful, that was vague, that was risky, that was safe. The training loop then nudges the model to emulate the high-scoring answers and avoid the low-scoring ones. So think of it as giving the model a sense of what people actually want and what it must never say. Think of it as giving the model kind of like judgment. But of course, humans are subject to biases. So this represents just another way for bias to be introduced into these models. And after reinforcement learning and human feedback, you get your base model like ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini. And these have better judgment than raw models. And then you have the option to fine tune them. So you can do task specific fine tuning. And this is where a company or a person can further train the model on its own material. So your customer emails, your legal documents, your product manuals, the model picks up the right tone, the right facts, the right jargon, the right next steps, the right next word to say when it's predicting. So it can be trained very specifically on your company or on your use case. So for example, if you're an accountant, you might train it on accounting for small businesses in the UK, or you might fine tune a model on your specific accountancy practices, approach to accounting, and how you work, your processes, etc. So, knowing this, you might be asking, why does the same prompt often give us different answers? So when you submit your prompt, the model isn't retrieving a pre-written answer, remember? It doesn't have a database of all the answers that it trawls through to return an answer. It's writing its response in real time, one word at a time. And for every next word, it's basically rolling a set of loaded dice. And some words have higher weights and others have lower weights. And the dice rolls are independent each run, so the sequence of words can change. And the model also keeps a tiny bit of built-in randomness in the process to avoid producing carbon copy replies. So if you know the training recipe, you know how to spot the issues, right? So everything we've covered, unsupervised reading, probability-driven guessing, pattern spotting, randomness, will help you get your head around some of the biggest pitfalls you're going to encounter when it comes to large language models. And the big one that I'm sure everybody is aware of now, I hope, are hallucinations, which is a built-in side effect of next word guessing. So for anyone who doesn't know what a hallucination is, it's when the chatbot just makes stuff up. And a lot of people either don't know what hallucinations are or they think that they're rare. But remember, the training loop rewards fluency. It rewards completing the sentence much more than it rewards telling the truth. So that means that when the model reaches a knowledge gap, it doesn't just stop and shrug its shoulders. It still picks the most likely next word. So a reply can sound very slick, but be completely invented. Now, some hallucinations are minor and inconsequential. So for example, this is Klaus, he's my cat. And I asked ChatGPT recently how long a domestic cat typically lives for, and ChatGPT told me 3 to 5 years. And Klaus is now 16, so that is a hallucination that has made me think that I have a miracle cat. But hallucinations can be much more consequential, as in this example. So this has happened actually many, many, many times, but this is the earliest case that I came across. A US lawyer who stood up in court presenting case law, including Varghese versus China Southern Airlines and Shaboon versus Egypt Air, only for the court and the lawyer to find that the cases just didn't exist and they had bogus judicial decisions with bogus quotes and bogus internal citations. And he just found them on ChatGPT. So the takeaway here is never believe what a large language model tells you. They are absolutely compulsive liars. So the next pitfall is bias. So as you've seen, the model absorbs the internet raw, the brilliant insights, the tired stereotypes, the prejudice, the nonsense included. And those patterns become probabilities and they can resurface, sometimes reinforced by human raters whose own biases will no doubt slip through. But by bias, I don't only mean stereotypes, because one of the big biases that you need to think about is sycophancy bias, in which you might have noticed, but these models tell you what you want to hear. For example, I recently asked ChatGPT to help me estimate the market size for a business that only sells lift shoes. And it suggested that that was 4.6 billion a year, which is it just wanted to help me because I asked it in a way that I was really excited about my left shoe only business, right? Then we have privacy and data issues. So it's very important for us all to understand that the AI companies that build and train models need one thing more than anything else, and that is data. They have all trained on the entire internet already, and they are hungry for more data. And so your private data that is not in the public domain and therefore not available to their competitors is absolute gold dust to them. They want to train their models on your data. And the default setting when you create accounts with them is that you give them permission to do this. Now, unless you've specifically signed up to models where you can control your data and prevent them from training their models, then anything you input into a large language model is effectively shouted in a crowded room. And you have no idea what's going to happen to that information. Maybe it'll be used to advertise to you in the future, or maybe you'll just be giving away information that will resurface in somebody else's prompt somewhere, answer to somebody else's prompt. You just don't know. So if you think an AI tool is good value for money, that's probably because you are paying with your £20 a month and you're also paying with your thoughts, your ideas, your words, your voice, and your face. And AI note takers are particularly bad for this. I have a major issue with them that I will happily share with anyone who asks. I love talking about that. Right, then we have misuse. So the same tools that boost our productivity and enable us to leverage ourselves to be bigger, better, more effective, faster, also does this for scammers, phishers, propagandists. So it's now so easy to scam at scale that we have to be vigilant. And then we have resource consumption. So training a frontier scale model means tens of thousands of GPUs, those graphics processing units, running for weeks, which is enough electricity to power a small town. So running it every day for your own use also draws heavy energy. So those are the biggest pitfalls. And knowing the training recipe lets you recognize these failure modes in the wild and build your own guardrails before you rely on the tech. So we are at 14 minutes since I started, because I started 3 minutes late. And I hope I've done something to help you answer the question, what the F is a large language model anyway? If you take one thing away from today, let it be this. Large language models don't think, they predict. They don't know, they guess. And when you understand that, you can use AI so much more effectively. And if you'd like practical help doing that, using AI purposefully, safely, and intelligently, then please visit my website, the AI Edit, to find out the different ways for working with me. And thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a good afternoon. Bye.